You cried over them last night, didn't you? Laid there in the dark, replaying everything they said, everything they did, wondering what you did wrong, wondering why you weren't enough. And here's what kills me. Here's what really destroys me. They're sleeping just fine. They're not thinking about you. They're not replaying the moments. They're not wondering if they made a mistake. They're fine, completely fine. While you're drowning in tears, they'll never see over pain they'll never acknowledge for a relationship they already forgot. And you want to know the worst part? They don't deserve a single one of those tears. Not one. But you deserve to know why. And I'm about to tell you why your tears mean nothing to them. Let's start with the brutal truth. The person you're crying over doesn't care that you're crying. They know you are. They just don't care. Because if they cared, they wouldn't have done what they did. They wouldn't have said what they said. They wouldn't have left the way they left. People who care about you don't make you cry in the first place. And when they do everything in their power to fix it. But they didn't fix it. They didn't apologize. They didn't try to make it right. They just moved on. Like you were nothing. Like what you had meant nothing. Like you never mattered. And that's the part that breaks you, isn't it? Not just that they left, but that they left so easily. No hesitation. No regret. No looking back. Just gone. And you're left holding all this pain, wondering how someone could walk away from you, like you were disposable. But here's what you need to understand. It's not about you. It was never about you. They didn't leave because you weren't enough. They left because they're empty. And empty people can't hold on to anything real. They can't appreciate depth because they live in shallow. They can't recognize value because they don't have any. So they discarded you. Not because you were worthless, but because they're incapable of seeing worth. And your tears, the tears you're crying right now, they're wasted on someone who was never capable of deserving them in the first place. You think you're crying over them, but you're not. You're crying over who you thought they were. The version of them that existed in your head. The potential you saw that they never lived up to. You're crying over the future you planned. The life you imagined. The person you were going to build something with. None of that was real. It was a fantasy. A hope. A projection. The real them. The one who left, the one who hurt you. The one who didn't fight for you. That person was never worth your tears. But the version you created, the one you loved, the one you believed in that person is worth mourning. Because that person doesn't exist. Never did. And that loss is real. You're grieving a ghost. A fiction. A beautiful lie you told yourself about someone who was never capable of being that person. And that's okay. That grief is valid. But you need to stop crying over the real them, the actual person who hurt you. Because they don't deserve your grief. They don't deserve your pain. They don't deserve a single thought in your head or a single tear from your eyes. They deserve to be forgotten, erased, made irrelevant. And every tear you cry gives them power they don't deserve. Every moment you spend thinking about them is a moment they're still controlling you. Stop giving them that power. Stop letting them live rent-free in your mind. Stop crying over someone who's not crying over you. What those tears are really costing you. Let me tell you what crying over them is costing you. It's costing you your peace, your sleep, your focus, your energy. It's costing you your self-worth, because every tear reinforces the lie that you weren't enough. It's costing you your future, because you're so focused on what you lost that you can't see what's coming. It's costing you your healing, because you can't heal what you keep reopening. It's costing you your joy, your laughter, your ability to be present. It's costing you relationships with people who actually deserve you, because you're too busy mourning someone who didn't. Every night you spend crying over them is a night you're not spending building yourself. Every moment you spend replaying what went wrong is a moment you're not spending moving forward. You're stuck, frozen, paralyzed by pain over someone who's already moved on, and they win. Every time you cry, they win. Every time you hurt, they win. Every time you question yourself, they win. Because that's what they wanted. They wanted to break you. They wanted to leave you questioning everything. They wanted to make you feel like you weren't enough. And every tear you cry proves they succeeded. But here's the truth. They don't want you to know. Your tears aren't evidence that you weren't enough. They're evidence that you cared too much about someone who cared too little. They're evidence that you're capable of deep feeling, of real love, of genuine connection, things they'll never be capable of. So your tears aren't weakness. They're proof of your humanity in a world full of people who've lost theirs. But you still need to stop crying them, not because they're invalid, but because they're wasted on someone who doesn't deserve to affect you this deeply. The truth about who they really are. Let me tell you who they really are. They're the person who chose to hurt you, who chose to leave, who chose themselves over you every single time. They're the person who made promises they had no intention of keeping, who said words they didn't mean, who played a role they never planned to maintain. They're the person who saw your love and exploited it, who saw your loyalty and abused it, who saw your heart and broke it without a second thought. They're the person who's probably doing the same thing to someone else right now, playing the same games, telling the same lies, creating the same damage, because that's who they are. Users, takers, people who consume others and move on when there's nothing left to take. They don't feel bad about what they did to you. They don't lose sleep. They don't question themselves. They justified it, rationalized it, made themselves the victim in a story where they were the villain, and they'll do it again to the next person, and the next, and the next, because they're broken in ways they'll never acknowledge, empty in ways they'll never fill, damaged in ways they'll never heal. That's who you're crying over. That's who you're losing sleep over. That's who you're letting destroy your peace. A broken, empty, damaged person who's incapable of being what you need, incapable of giving what you deserve, incapable of loving the way you love. And once you really see that, once you see them for who they actually are, not who you wanted them to be, the tears will stop, because you don't cry over trash. You don't mourn garbage. You don't grieve things that were always meant to be thrown away. You just take it out and you move on. Why you keep crying anyway? But you know all this already, don't you? You know they're not worth it. You know they don't deserve your tears. You know you should move on. So why do you keep crying? Because you're not crying over them. You're crying over you. You're crying because you feel stupid. You feel used. You feel like you should have known better. You're replaying every moment, looking for the signs you missed, the red flags you ignored, the warnings you dismissed. You're beating yourself up for trusting someone who proved they couldn't be trusted, for loving someone who proved they couldn't love you back. You're crying because you invested so much time, so much energy, so much of yourself. And it feels like it was all wasted. Like you threw away months or years on someone who was never gonna stay. You're crying because you feel like you lost. Like they won. Like they got the best of you and walked away clean while you're left here broken. That's what the tears are really about. Not them. You. Your pain. Your regret. Your anger at yourself for not seeing it sooner. But here's what you need to understand. You didn't lose. You learned. You didn't waste time. You gained wisdom. You didn't fail. You survived. Everything you're crying about right now is evidence that you're capable of growth, of learning, of becoming someone who won't make the same mistake twice. Those tears aren't weakness. They're transformation. They're you shedding who you were, mourning the version of yourself that believed in them, letting go of the person you were before you knew better. And that's painful, but it's necessary. Because you can't become who you need to be while still holding on to who you were. The tears you should be crying. You want to know what you should be crying about? Not them. Not what you lost. Not what could have been. You should be crying about all the time you wasted on someone who was never gonna choose you. You should be crying about all the real opportunities you missed because you were focused on someone fake. You should be crying about how long you accepted less than you deserved. You should be crying about how you let someone make you feel worthless when you're priceless. You should be crying about how you gave your best to someone who gave you their worst. Those are the tears worth crying. The tears of recognition, of realization, of finally seeing the truth. But those tears should be brief, quick. A moment of acknowledgement before you move forward. Because here's the real truth. Crying about what you lost is looking backward, and everything you need is forward. Crying about them is giving them power, and they don't deserve power over you. Crying about what could have been is fantasy, and you need to live in reality. Reality is this: they're gone, it's over. And that's actually a gift, because every day they're not in your life is a day you get to heal, to grow, to become someone stronger. Every tear you cry over them is moisture wasted on dead soil, when you could be watering new seeds. So cry if you need to, but cry for you, not for them. Cry for the person you were who didn't know better. Then wipe your face and become the person who does. What happens when you stop? You want to know what happens when you stop crying over them. Everything changes. You get your power back. The power you gave them when you let them live in your head rent-free. You get your peace back. The peace they stole when they made you question everything. You get yourself back. The version of you that existed before they made you feel small. When you stop crying over them, you start seeing clearly. You start noticing the red flags you ignored, the patterns you excused, the lies you believed, and you start trusting yourself again. Because you realize you knew. Deep down, you always knew. You just chose to ignore it because you wanted to believe. Because you hoped they'd change. Because you loved the potential more than the reality. But now you know better. Now you trust your gut. Now you listen to the warnings. When you stop crying over them, you start laughing again. But not fake laughs to make others comfortable. Real laughs because something's actually funny. You start feeling again. Not just pain, but joy. Excitement, hope. You start living again. Not just existing, not just surviving, actually living. You start noticing the people who were always there. The ones who showed up when they left. The ones who stayed quiet and held space while you healed. The ones who deserve your tears. your time, your energy. When you stop crying over them, you start building a life they're not in, building a future they're not part of, building a version of yourself they'll never get to know. And that version is better, stronger, wiser, because you learned, you grew, you survived. And survival is the best revenge. The moment you know you're done, you'll know you're done crying over them when you hear their name and feel nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not longing, nothing. When you see their picture and don't zoom in, don't stare, don't wonder. When you hear a song that reminds you of them and don't skip it, don't cry, don't feel that tug in your chest when someone mentions them, and you don't change the subject, don't get defensive, don't pretend you don't care. You actually don't care. That's when you know. That's when you're free. But getting there requires you to make a choice. Right now, today. The choice to stop giving them your tears, your thoughts, your energy. The choice to stop replaying what happened and start building what's next. The choice to stop mourning what you lost and start celebrating what you gained. Because you gained something from this. You gained knowledge, strength, standards. You learned what you won't tolerate, what you won't accept, what you won't settle for. You learned that you can survive heartbreak, that you're stronger than you thought, that you don't need anyone who doesn't choose you. Those lessons are worth more than any relationship with someone who was never going to stay. So make the choice. Right now. Choose to be done. Choose to move forward. Choose yourself. Because they already chose themselves. They already moved on. They're already fine. And you deserve to be fine too. Better than fine. You deserve to be free. Happy. Healed. But you can't get there while still crying over them. So stop. Just stop. Here's the truth you deserve. You are not the problem. You never were. You loved hard. You gave everything. You showed up consistently. And they still left. Not because you weren't enough, but because they were never capable of appreciating enough. You deserve someone who sees your value without you having to prove it. Someone who chooses you without you having to convince them. Someone who stays without you having to beg. You deserve someone who makes you feel safe, not anxious, chosen, not optional, loved, not tolerated. You deserve someone whose actions match their words, whose consistency proves their commitment, whose presence brings peace, not pain. That person exists, but you'll never find them while still crying over someone who was never them. You have to let go. Completely, totally, finally. Not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough to know when to stop fighting for someone who never fought for you. Strong enough to walk away from someone who made walking away easy. Strong enough to choose yourself when nobody else did. That's not giving up. That's growing up. That's not quitting. That's winning. Because the real victory isn't getting them back. It's getting yourself back. The version of you that knows your worth, that protects your peace, that refuses to settle. The version that doesn't cry over people who don't cry over you. So here's what you do. You take all that pain, all those tears, all that energy, and you redirect it into yourself, into your growth, into becoming someone so complete that the next person who leaves becomes irrelevant before they even arrive. You become someone who doesn't need anyone, who just chooses to let people in when they've earned it. You become someone who sees red flags and leaves, who hears lies and walks, who feels disrespect and disappears. You become someone who knows that being alone is better than being with the wrong person, that peace is better than chaos, that self-love is better than toxic love. That's who you become when you stop crying over people who don't deserve your tears. You become unbreakable, unstoppable, unforgettable. Not to them, they don't matter. To yourself, to your future, to everyone who comes next and realizes what they almost missed. So wipe your face, take a breath, and make the decision. No more tears for people who aren't crying for you. No more pain for people who aren't healing from you. No more time for people who aren't investing in you. You're done. Starting now. They don't deserve your tears, but you deserve this truth. You are enough. You always were. And anyone who couldn't see that was never meant to stay. So let them go, for real this time, and watch what happens when you finally choose you. Everything happens. They don't deserve your tears, but you deserve to know this. Every tear you cry over someone who's not crying over you is a tear you could have saved for yourself, for your healing, for your growth. Stop watering dead plants. Start watering yourself. Watch how fast you bloom.